Amara Okonkwo adjusted her designer sunglasses in the bathroom mirror of Lagos' most expensive coffee shop. Not that she needed them for vision, her eyesight was perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. She saw through everyone, investors pitching to her fintech company, men sliding into her DMs, friends asking for small loans that were never small. At 26, she was exhausted by transparency. "Are you sure about this?" Ife asked, leaning against the marble sink. Her best friend and roommate looked uncomfortable, which was rare for someone who made discomfort her business on her secret OnlyFans account. "Absolutely," Amara replied, tucking away her phone. On it, the notification blinked. Onyx crypto stocks up 12% following CEO Tobe Nnamani's announcement. Nobody knew Tobe Nnamani was actually Amara. Her shareholders would have panic attacks if they discovered their billions were being managed by a woman who hadn't yet turned 30. "You realize this is psychotic, right?" Ife adjusted her crop top. "You can't just pretend to be blind to test if men love you for you. Watch me." Amara unfolded a white cane she'd ordered from an accessibility store online. She'd practiced with it for weeks in their apartment. "I'm tired of people loving what I represent. The money. The status. The performance." Ife grabbed her wrist. "This isn't just unethical, it's cruel. What happens when you meet someone who actually falls for blind Amara?" Amara smiled thinly. "Then I'll have found what I'm looking for." With that, she swept out of the bathroom, tapping her cane in a rhythm she'd memorized from YouTube tutorials. Behind her dark glasses, her eyes remained open, taking in everything: the barista's judgmental stare, the tech bros hunched over MacBooks, and a lanky man in wrinkled clothes typing furiously on a laptop near the window. Amara moved toward him, counting steps. 23, 24. She deliberately tripped on his backpack, sending her hot cocoa flying. It splashed across his chest. Perfect aim. "Oh my God." He jumped up, a laptop clutched protectively, a shirt dripping. "I'm so sorry." Amara's voice carried the perfect blend of mortification and helplessness. I can't see." It's fine," he stammered, though his voice suggested it was anything but fine. "Are you okay?" Amara's hands fluttered out, finding his face with a surprising gentleness that seemed to startle them both. Her fingers traced his features: high cheekbones, the strong jaw, soft lips that parted slightly at her touch. "I'm trying to picture you," she explained. The cafe had gone quiet. Lagos wasn't a city where people typically touched strangers' faces in public, blind or not. "I'm not much to picture," he said with a self-deprecating laugh. "I'm Kunle. Amara." Her finger still rested on his cheek. "Let me buy you another coffee. And maybe a shirt." "The shirt I spilled on is literally the best one I own," Kunle admitted. "I was meeting a producer today." "Producer?" "I'm a scriptwriter. Trying to be, anyway." There was something disarming about his honesty. "Though right now I mostly write copy for deodorant commercials." Amara took his arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Tell me about your scripts while we find you a new shirt." "The least I can do." And that easily, her experiment began. Over the next 3 months, Kunle became a fixture in her carefully constructed false reality. He read her menus in restaurants, described sunsets with surprising poetry, and never once questioned her disability. She installed hidden cameras in her apartment before inviting him over, tiny devices that fed into a secure server where she could review footage later. On camera, Kunle was a revelation. When she went to the bathroom, he didn't snoop through her things. When she slept, he sometimes just watched her, with an expression she couldn't quite categorize: not lust, not ownership, but something closer to wonder. It irritated her at first. Nobody should be this genuine. By month 6, they were officially dating. By month 9, she was questioning her own experiment. By the end of year 1, Amara had a horrifying realization: she was falling in love with Kunle while lying to his face. "I can't keep doing this," she told Ife one night, watching footage of Kunle cooking dinner in her kitchen, narrating each step as if she could see nothing. "He's too good." "Then stop," Ife said simply, painting her toenails black. "Tell him the truth." But Amara couldn't. The longer the lie continued, the more impossible confession became. And something darker had begun to bloom inside her: a need to know just how far his love would go. Would he stay if she became demanding? If she tested his patience? His boundaries? She began the subtle escalation of relationship stress: missing dates, picking fights, testing jealousy triggers. Kunle bent but never broke. When she accused him of flirting with Ife, he was patient. When she claimed he was ashamed to be seen with a blind woman, he took her to his mother's birthday party. "I don't understand," she whispered to Ife, watching footage of Kunle asleep on her couch after staying late to help her organize her closet. "What's wrong with him?" "Maybe nothing's wrong with him," Ife suggested. "Maybe something's wrong with you." By the 18-month mark, Amara's company had doubled in value. She had enough money to buy a small country. But in her apartment, reviewing footage of Kunle explaining the plot of a film she pretended not to see, she felt like the poorest woman in Lagos. "I think I love him," she admitted to herself, alone in her monitoring room. On their 2-year anniversary, Kunle took her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Lagos skyline. The air was thick with humidity and promise. He described the city lights as electric fireflies caught in a spider's web of highways. "Amara," he said, reaching for her hand. "I need to tell you something." Her heart stopped. Had he discovered her lie? The cameras. Her true identity. "I sold my script," he said, voice breaking with excitement. "A production company wants to make my film." Relief flooded her. "That's amazing." "It's about us," he continued. "A love story where one person sees the world differently. They are flying me to Cape Town next month for pre-production." Amara froze, glass halfway to her lips. "You wrote about us." "Not exactly us," he clarified. "It's fiction. But you inspired it. The way you navigate the world, the strength you have." He squeezed her hand. "The way you've taught me to really see." The irony burned like acid in her throat. She drained her wine glass. "I want you to come with me," he said. "To Cape Town." "For how long?" 6 weeks. Maybe longer. 6 weeks away from her company. 6 weeks maintaining her lie in an unfamiliar environment. 6 weeks without her monitoring system. "I can't," she said. His face fell. "Because of work." She nodded, forgetting momentarily that blind Amara didn't have the high-powered job of real Amara. "I mean, because of logistics. My routine here." Something shifted in his expression, so subtle she nearly missed it. A shadow of doubt. "What kind of work do you do again?" he asked carefully. "You've never really explained." The question hung between them like a live wire. In that moment, Amara realized how fragile her web of lies had become. One tug on the wrong strand, then everything would collapse. "I consult," she said vaguely. "For tech companies." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Even though you can't see computer screens." "I use accessibility software," she answered too quickly. "Screen readers." "Right," he said, but that shadow hadn't left his face. Later that night, reviewing the rooftop footage, Amara watched him watching her when she excused herself to the bathroom. For the first time, he looked troubled, not concerned, but suspicious. He'd taken out his phone, typed something. Zooming in on the footage, she caught a glimpse of his search, Tobe Nnamani Onyx crypto. Cold fear gripped her. The simulation was developing glitches. Soon, she would have to choose, end the experiment, or escalate it beyond her control. What had started as a test of love was becoming something else entirely, a test of how many lives she could live before they all crashed into each other. By their third year together, Amara had crafted an impressive ecosystem of deception. The cameras in her apartment had multiplied: bedroom, kitchen, living room, even the hallway, each feeding into a secure server she monitored obsessively. She'd hired a personal assistant who believed she was helping a blind tech consultant, but was actually managing the overlap between Amara's dual identities. Kunle had returned from Cape Town 3 months ago, changed in ways she couldn't quite define. His script was in production, stars attached, budget approved. Success had given him a quiet confidence, but something else lingered beneath the surface, a restlessness, a vigilance that hadn't been there before. "You're different," she told him one evening as they lay tangled in her Egyptian cotton sheets, the hidden camera in her designer light fixture capturing everything. "So are you," he replied, fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. The comment sent a chill through her. Had he noticed something? Had she slipped up? Kunle sat up suddenly. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest." Amara's heart hammered. This was it, the moment of exposure. "Do you ever feel like someone's watching you?" he asked. The question was so unexpected that she laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound that didn't suit her. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain it." He ran a hand through his hair. "Lately I've had this feeling, like we are being observed." Amara sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "That's called paranoia, Kunle." "Is it, though?" He reached for his phone on the nightstand. 3 separate times I found weird glitches on my devices. My email was accessed from an IP address I don't recognize. And yesterday," he hesitated. "Yesterday I found something behind your bathroom mirror." Amara's blood turned to ice. She'd installed that camera herself. It was completely concealed behind the two-way glass. Impossible to detect unless you were looking for it. "What are you talking about?" Her voice remained steady despite the panic flooding her system. "A reflection." He was studying her face too intensely. "A tiny red light. When I went to touch it, it disappeared." "You're imagining things." She reached for him, hands finding his shoulders with practiced precision. "The success, the pressure of the film, it's getting to you." He caught her wrists. Gently, but firmly. "Maybe. Or maybe there's something you're not telling me." The room felt airless suddenly. How much did he suspect? And more importantly, what would he do with those suspicions? "I think someone might be stalking you," he said finally. "Someone who knows you're vulnerable. Maybe it's that ex you mentioned, the politician's son. Or someone from work." Relief rushed through her so powerfully she nearly collapsed against him. He didn't suspect her, he was worried for her. "Nobody's stalking me," she assured him, kissing his neck, grateful for this unexpected reprieve. "I'm hiring security," he insisted. "I have money now. I can protect you." "You're overreacting." "Am I?" He pulled away slightly. "Then explain the cameras." Amara froze. "What cameras?" "The ones I haven't found yet," he said, "but that I know are there." The silence between them stretched taut as piano wire. "Your apartment feels different lately," he continued. "Like, strategically arranged. And sometimes I hear electronic humming when everything's supposed to be off." She forced a laugh. "Now you're being ridiculous." "Am I?" He reached beneath her pillow and pulled out her phone. "Then why do you sleep with your phone under your pillow?" You can't see notifications. You can't read texts without your screen reader. So why keep it there? Force of habit, she said weakly. From before. He handed her the phone. Unlock it. What? Unlock your phone. Let me see what's on it. This is absurd. She set the phone aside. You don't trust me. I trust you completely, he said with disturbing conviction. It's everyone else I'm worried about. That night, after Kunle left, Amara sat in her monitoring room, reviewing footage with a growing sense of dread. He was becoming observant in all the wrong ways. Protective in all the wrong places. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd created this experiment to find true love, and now that she'd found it, its very authenticity threatened to destroy her elaborate fiction. Meanwhile, her other life was demanding attention. Onyx Crypto was preparing to go public. Financial journalists were clamoring for interviews with the mysterious Tobe Nnamani. Her board was pressuring her to make public appearances. The male actor she'd hired to play Tobe for video conferences was demanding more money. Everything was accelerating toward a collision. 3 days later, Ife threw a party at their apartment. Kunle arrived late, having met with his film's producers. Amara played her part, the careful blind woman navigating a crowded space, accepting help she didn't need, laughing at jokes she pretended not to see coming. But halfway through the night, she lost track of him. Where's Kunle? She asked Ife as they stood in the kitchen, ostensibly getting more drinks. Bathroom, I think, Ife slurred slightly. She'd been matching shots with a music producer she was trying to seduce. Or maybe smoking on the balcony with James. Anise prickled at Amara's spine. She excused herself and navigated to her bedroom, closed off for the party but unlocked. Inside, it was dark and seemingly empty. Kunle, she called softly. No answer. She closed the door behind her and dropped the blind act, scanning the room normally. Empty. But her laptop was open on the desk, the laptop that was supposed to be locked in her safe. Heart racing, she checked the browser history. Someone had accessed her cloud storage, the server where she kept all the surveillance footage. Looking for this. She whirled around. Kunle stood in the doorway of her ensuite bathroom, holding a tiny camera, one of her spares. I can explain, she began, but realized too late her mistake. She'd responded to his visual cue. She'd seen him. His laugh was hollow. No need. I think I understand perfectly. It's not what you think. Isn't it? He stepped closer. 3 years, Amara. 3 years of me describing sunsets to someone who could see them better than I could. She sank onto the edge of the bed. How long have you known? Known? About a week. Suspected. 6 months. He ran a hand through his hair. Your reflection in a wine glass. The way you dodged a waiter you shouldn't have known was coming. Little things that added up. And you stayed. Knowing I was lying. His expression was complicated, hurt, yes, but something else too. Fascination, perhaps. I wanted to understand why. What kind of person constructs such an elaborate deception? What were you getting out of it? The rawness of the question stripped her bare. I wanted to know if someone could love me without all the accessories. She gestured vaguely, encompassing her wealth, her status, her power. Just me. But it wasn't just you, he said quietly. It was a character you invented. A vulnerable woman who needed help navigating the world. That's not. Do you even need me at all? He interrupted. The real you. The question hung in the air between them, unanswerable. Outside, the party continued, bass thumping through the walls like an irregular heartbeat. I love you, she said finally. That part wasn't a lie. How would I know the difference? He placed the camera on her nightstand. You've been watching me this whole time. Every private moment, every vulnerability, all secretly recorded and reviewed. I can delete it all, she offered desperately. We can start over. Something flashed in his eyes, something calculating she'd never seen before. No, he said slowly. I don't think we'll be deleting anything. Fear slithered down her spine. What do you mean? I think, he said, pulling out his phone, that we are just getting to the interesting part. He showed her the screen, a video downloading to his device. Footage from her bedroom cameras. What are you doing? She whispered. Gathering material, he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. My next script just got a lot more interesting. The morning after Kunle discovered her secret, Amara woke to an empty bed and 37 missed calls. 35 from her board of directors, 2 from Ife. She ignored them all, stumbling to her monitoring room on autopilot, only to find the system wiped clean. Every file, every recording, gone. A single post-it note remained on the main monitor. Who's blind now? Her phone rang again. This time she answered. Have you seen it? Ife's voice was tight with panic. Seen what? Oh God, you haven't. Turn on your TV. Now. Amara fumbled for the remote, flipping to NTA News. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Tech billionaire Tobe Nnamani revealed as 26-year-old woman. Her legs gave out. There on national television was her Forbes Africa cover, photoshopped to replace the male actor's face with her own. The caption read, Amara Okonkwo, the woman behind Nigeria's crypto giant. How? She whispered. It gets worse, Ife said. Check Twitter. With shaking hands, Amara opened the app. The hashtag blind ambition was trending at number 1. Beneath it, the video clip, Amara in her apartment, removing her dark glasses, staring directly at a hidden camera while Kunle slept beside her. The clip had 10 million views already. I have to go, she told Ife, hanging up as her other line blinked with her lawyer's number. For 3 days, Amara didn't leave her apartment. Onyx crypto stock plummeted, then rose again as investors decided a female CEO was actually excellent PR. Her board voted to keep her on, rebranding the company's deception as a necessary shield against industry sexism. The business would survive. Her personal life was another matter entirely. On the 4th day, Kunle appeared at her door. You look terrible, he said, taking in her unwashed hair and swollen eyes. Why are you here? Her voice was hoarse from disuse. He held up a newspaper, one of the few still in print. His face was on the cover. My film got fast-tracked. Full financing. They are calling me a visionary. Congratulations, she said flatly. You ruined my life and got a movie deal. Ruined? He raised an eyebrow. Your company's stock is up 17% since the revelation. You're being called an icon of female empowerment in tech. You know what I mean. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Actually, I don't. You lied to me for 3 years. You recorded my most intimate moments without consent. By any legal definition, I'm the victim here. Then why leak my identity? Why not just leave? Kunle moved to her window, looking out at the Lagos skyline. Because you needed to experience it. Experience what? Being seen. He turned to face her. Really seen. Not the version of yourself you project, not the character you play. The real Amara, flawed, manipulative, brilliant, and terrified. A chill ran through her. You're insane. Maybe. He shrugged. Or maybe I'm just returning the favor. You created an experiment to test love. I'm creating one to test truth. Amara sank onto her couch. So what happens now? You've had your revenge. Revenge? He seemed genuinely surprised. This isn't revenge, Amara. It's revelation. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes in an exaggerated motion. Do you know how exhausting it is to pretend you can't see? The words took a moment to register. What did you say? His smile was sharp enough to cut. I started wearing non-prescription glasses 2 months ago. Practicing bumping into things when you weren't around. Preparing. For what? Phase 2. He sat beside her. You see, after I discovered your cameras, I realized something profound: we are perfect for each other. Both willing to go to extraordinary lengths to expose the truth about love and deception. You're saying? I'm saying, he interrupted, that I've been pretending to be going blind. Degenerative condition. Very sad. My doctor, who's actually my cousin's roommate acting the part, gave me 6 months before total vision loss. Horror and fascination were within her. Why would you do that? I wanted to see what you'd do, he said simply. If you'd confess when faced with the cosmic irony. If you'd double down on your lie. If you'd run away. He leaned closer. I needed to know who you really are when the tables are turned. And, she whispered. And I still don't know. His gaze was unflinching. That's why I'm here. In that moment, Amara understood she'd created something far more dangerous than a simple deception. She'd found someone as committed to psychological warfare as she was, perhaps more so. I want to make you an offer, Colonel continued. A reset. Complete transparency from this point forward. Why would I trust you? You shouldn't, he agreed. Just as I shouldn't trust you. That's what makes it interesting. This isn't a game, Colonel. Isn't it? He gestured around her minimalist apartment. You have billions of naira, yet you live like a graduate student. You could run your company openly, yet you created an elaborate male persona. You could date anyone, yet you chose to fake a disability to test them. He shook his head. Games are exactly what you live for. The accusation stung because it contained too much truth. And you, she challenged. What do you live for? Stories, he said without hesitation. The messy, complicated human stories that most people are too afraid to tell. Like ours. Despite herself, Amara felt the familiar pull toward him, that magnetic charge that had drawn her from the beginning. And if I say no to your reset? Then I release the rest of the footage. His tone was matter of fact. The things you said when you thought I was asleep. The private calls about your company when you thought I was in the shower. The real Amara, unfiltered and unperformed. That's blackmail. That's leverage, he corrected. Something you understand intimately. They sat in silence, two predators assessing each other across a shrinking neutral zone. One condition, she said finally. Your film. I want final approval on the script. His laugh was genuine this time. Absolutely not. Then no deal. You don't have the power here anymore, Amara. He stood. That's the point. For once in your life, you have to trust someone else with your story. I can't do that. Can't. Or won't. He moved toward the door. You have 24 hours to decide. Transparency or exposure. Your choice. After he left, Amara called Ife. He's countering, she explained. Playing his own game. You sound almost impressed, Ife noted. I am, Amara admitted. He's better at this than I expected. So what are you going to do? Amara stared at her reflection in the window, successful, exposed, and strangely liberated. I'm going to beat him at his own game. She spent the night planning her counterattack. By morning, she had a strategy to agree to his transparency demand, but on her terms. She would control the narrative by going public with everything first, a tell-all interview, a memoir deal, a documentary crew to follow their reconciliation. She would commodify the very transparency he demanded. But when she called his number the next day, a woman answered. Hello. Amara said, confused. Is this Amara? The woman's voice was coolly professional. Yes. Who's this? This is Regina Okafor, Mr. Adeyemi's attorney. I'm calling to inform you that any further contact with my client must go through legal channels. I don't understand. Mr. Adeyemi has filed a restraining order against you, citing 3 years of illegal surveillance and psychological manipulation. He what? Furthermore, the lawyer continued, he's secured a deal with Netflix for a limited series based on your relationship. As a public figure involved in a matter of public interest, your consent for portrayal is not required. The phone slipped from Amara's fingers. He'd anticipated her move. Outplayed her before she could even begin. The game had evolved beyond her control. 7 months after Kunle filed the restraining order, Lagos was plastered with billboards for his Netflix series, Blind Spot, based on the true story of deception and desire. The promotional images showed 2 actors back-to-back, the woman in dark glasses, the man with eyes wide open. Amara had moved to her company's New York office, partly to escape the publicity, partly to reinvent herself on her own terms. Onyx Crypto had not only survived the scandal but thrived on it. She'd hired an American PR firm that specialized in crisis management, rebranding herself as the woman who broke the glass ceiling by any means necessary. Forbes now called her a ruthlessly innovative. Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people. She'd started dating a French architect who knew exactly who she was and found her notorious past thrilling. She should have been happy. Instead, she checked Nigerian entertainment news obsessively, tracking Kunle's ascending career with a mixture of bitterness and something else she refused to name. You're still not over him, Ife observed during one of their weekly video calls. Her friend had leveraged her connection to the scandal into a successful podcast about relationship deception. I'm over him, Amara insisted. I'm not over what he did. What's the difference? Amara had no answer for that. The premiere date for A Blind Spot loomed closer. Despite her lawyer's best efforts, she couldn't stop its release. The best they'd managed was a disclaimer, inspired by true events. Characters and situations have been fictionalized. 3 days before the global premiere, Amara received an unmarked package at her Manhattan penthouse. Inside was a thumb drive and a note, preview screening. Your eyes only. She knew she shouldn't watch it. Her therapist would call it self-harm. Her lawyers would call it masochism. But that night, alone with a bottle of Nigerian palm wine, she plugged in the drive. The series was brutal in its intimacy, more psychological thriller than romance. The Amara character, named Zara, was portrayed with uncomfortable accuracy, brilliant but damaged, controlling yet desperately afraid of abandonment. The Kunle character, Kofi, was similarly layered, romantic but calculating, devoted yet resentful of his own devotion. By the final episode, Amara was curled into herself on the couch, raw from recognition. The climactic scene took place on a podcast set, just as she'd envisioned in their original confrontation, but with dialogue she'd never imagined. On screen, Zara finally admitted everything, the cameras, the deception, the fear driving it all. But instead of the scathing monologue she'd expected from Kofi, he simply asked, "Did you ever consider that I stayed because I saw the real you all along? That I loved you not despite your schemes, but because they revealed how desperately you wanted to be loved authentically." The line hit Amara like a physical blow. She paused the video, gasping for air that suddenly seemed too thin. Had that been true? Had Kunle seen through her from the beginning? Had he loved the manipulator as much as the mask she wore? The possibility was more terrifying than any exposure. She finished the series as dawn broke over the Manhattan skyline. The thumb drive contained one additional file, a video message from Kunle himself, unpolished and clearly self-recorded. "Hello, Amara," he began, looking directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, you've seen our story through my eyes. Not the literal story, I took creative liberties, but the emotional truth of it." He looked older somehow, more subdued. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "What we did to each other can't be undone. But there's something you should know that isn't in the series." He paused, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her chest ache. "I wasn't pretending to go blind. That was a lie I told you that day in your apartment. Another manipulation in our endless game." His smile was sad. "But here's the truth, I'm actually losing my vision now. Retinitis pigmentosa. The irony isn't lost on me." Amara's hand flew to her mouth. "I'll be fully blind within 2 years. Real blind, not performance blind." He looked away from the camera. "I thought you should hear it from me before the press gets hold of it." The message ended abruptly, leaving Amara staring at a black screen that reflected her own shocked face. Without conscious decision, she booked a flight to Lagos that same morning. 48 hours later, she stood outside the studio where Ife recorded her podcast. Inside, according to the schedule she'd hacked from their booking system, Kunle was giving a pre-premiere interview. Her security team had advised against coming. Her lawyers had threatened to quit. But some compulsions ran deeper than reason. She waited in the reception area, heart hammering against her ribs. When the studio door finally opened and Kunle emerged, laughing at something Ife had said, he froze mid-step at the sight of her. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice carefully neutral. "The restraining order expired last month," she finished. "You didn't renew it." They stared at each other, 3 feet and 3,000 miles of history between them. "Is it true?" she asked. "About your eyes?" His jaw tightened. "You got my message. Answer the question." "Yes," he said finally. "It's true." Something shifted in the atmosphere, the recalibration of power, of vulnerability. "I'm staying at the Continental," she said. "Room 1217. Tonight at 8. If you want to talk." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Why now, Amara? After all this time?" She looked back at him, allowing herself one moment of complete transparency. "Because now we're even." That night at 8, her hotel room doorbell rang. When she opened it, Kunle stood there with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "To celebrate your homecoming," he explained. "Or my downfall?" "Dealer's choice." "Neither," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Maybe just to mark the occasion." They sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the champagne between them untouched. "Your series," she began. "It's better than I expected. High praise from my unwilling muse." "Did you really know?" she asked abruptly. "That I could see? Did you suspect before you found the cameras?" He considered the question carefully. "I think part of me always knew something wasn't right. But I wanted so badly to believe in the connection we had that I ignored the inconsistencies." "So you loved a lie?" "No." His response was immediate. "I loved the woman hiding behind the lie. The one who was so afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons that she created the most elaborate test imaginable." Amara looked away. "And now? Are you afraid of going blind?" He shrugged with forced casualness. Terrified. But also curious. Curious. About whether I'll experience the world the way I imagined when I was describing it to you. A small, ironic smile played at his lips. Whether sunset will feel the way I told you it felt. The moment stretched between them, fraught with unspoken possibilities. I have a proposition, Amara said finally, reaching for the champagne. Since we are both experts at elaborate scenarios. I'm listening. His guard was up, but curiosity flickered across his face. What if, she poured 2 glasses with steady hands, we document your transition? The filmmaker becoming the subject. The watcher losing his sight. You want to record me going blind? His laugh was sharp. That's dark, even for you. Not record. Collaborate. She handed him a glass, careful not to let their fingers touch. A joint project. Your words, my resources. The ultimate transparency. Why would I agree to that? Because you're a storyteller who's about to experience the greatest plot twist of his life. She took a sip, watching him over the rim. And because deep down, you're as addicted to being seen as I am to watching. The recognition flashed across his face, she'd struck a nerve. It was true. For all his moral outrage, Kunle craved observation. Why else become a filmmaker? Why else expose their story to millions? What's your real angle? He asked, skepticism edging his voice. Maybe I want redemption, she admitted. Or maybe I just want to see if we can create something honest after building a relationship on lies. He studied her for a long moment. The last time we collaborated, I ended up with a restraining order against you. And I ended up on the cover of Forbes. She shrugged. We both know how to turn disaster into opportunity. Outside, Lagos traffic created a symphony of horns and engines. Inside, the silence between them vibrated with dangerous potential. One condition, he said finally. No hidden cameras. Whatever we document together. Consensually. Deal. She extended her hand. After a heartbeat of hesitation, he took it. The contact was electric, charged with memory and warning. To transparency, she offered, raising her glass. To seeing clearly, he countered, while I still can. They clinked glasses, neither breaking eye contact, neither fully trusting, neither able to pull away from the gravitational force that had always existed between them, equal parts attraction and distraction. The game had evolved. But it was still very much a game. 6 months into their collaboration, Amara and Kunle had established an uneasy routine. 3 times a week, they met to document his deteriorating vision through conversations, medical appointments, and artistic experiments. The footage, raw, intimate, sometimes brutal, was stored on a shared server they both controlled. They'd set professional boundaries. They'd established safe words for triggering topics. They'd created a system of mutual accountability that would have impressed hostage negotiators. What they hadn't planned for was the resurrection of their chemistry. Hold still, Amara instructed, adjusting the specialized camera mounted to Kunle's glasses. They were in his apartment, sleek, minimalist, with adaptive technology already installed in preparation for what was coming. The calibration needs to capture your exact field of vision. Hard to hold still when I can't see what I'm looking at, he complained, but complied. His peripheral vision had deteriorated faster than expected. The world was closing in on him like a spotlight narrowing on a stage, the edges dissolving into darkness. There. She stepped back, reviewing the data on her tablet. We've got a perfect map of your current visual field. How bad is it? He asked, trying to sound casual. Amara hesitated. Their agreement demanded honesty, but honesty could be cruel. You've lost another 12 degrees on the left side. He absorbed this with a small nod. Play it for me. She connected the glasses camera to his television. On screen appeared Kunle's perspective, a tunnel vision version of his living room, the edges blurred into nothingness. "Shit," he whispered. Amara sat beside him on the couch, careful to maintain the professional distance they'd established. "The doctor said it might plateau for a while. The doctor also said I had 5 years, not 2. His laugh held no humor. "At this rate, I'll be fully blind before my series wins its Emmy." "You're that confident about the Emmy?" "I have to be confident about something." He removed the glasses, rubbing his eyes. "Everything else is dissolving." The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open inside her. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. He stiffened at her touch but didn't pull away. "Do you know what scares me most?" He asked, staring straight ahead. "What?" "Forgetting your face." The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and honest. "You could always feel it," she suggested with a weak attempt at humor. "Like that first day in the coffee shop." His smile was sad. "That was a performance." "Not entirely." She hesitated, then made a decision. "Close your eyes." "Why?" "Just do it." He complied, skepticism evident in the set of his shoulders. Gently, she took his hand and guided it to her face. "Memorize it," she said softly. "For real this time." His fingers traced her features with delicate precision, the arch of her eyebrows, the slope of her nose, the fullness of her lips. His touch was tender but clinical, a cartographer mapping terrain before it disappeared beneath rising waters. Until it wasn't. His thumb brushed her lower lip, lingering. Her breath caught. His head tilted slightly, listening to the change in her breathing. "This is a bad idea," he murmured, but his hand remained on her cheek. "Probably," she agreed. Neither moved away. Later, they would debate who leaned in first. Who crossed the boundary they'd so carefully established. But in the moment, it didn't matter. The kiss held 3 years of genuine connection, 7 months of bitter separation, and 6 months of cautious collaboration, all igniting in a conflagration neither had the wisdom to resist. "Wait," he gasped, pulling back. "The cameras." "Off," she assured him. "No recording. This isn't part of the project." "What is it part of, then?" She had no answer that wouldn't sound like another manipulation. Instead, she kissed him again, and this time he didn't pull away. That night changed the parameters of their collaboration. They didn't discuss it. They didn't define it. They simply adjusted to the new reality where professional boundaries dissolved after dark, where vulnerability was no longer just documented but shared. 2 weeks later, Ife threw a launch party for her podcast's new season. The theme, naturally, was vision and blindness in relationships. Lagos entertainment elite gathered at a rooftop lounge overlooking the city, influencers, filmmakers, tech entrepreneurs, all buzzing with excitement for Kunle's upcoming series premiere and speculation about whether Amara would make an appearance. She did, arriving separately from Kunle to avoid feeding the gossip mills. They'd agreed to keep their rekindled relationship, whatever it was, private until after his series aired. The party was a sensory assault, strobe lights, pounding music, hundreds of conversations creating a wall of sound. For Kunle, with his deteriorating vision, it was disorienting. Amara watched from across the room as he navigated carefully, occasionally bumping into people, apologizing with the practiced grace of someone adjusting to disability. "Your boy's struggling," Ife commented, appearing beside Amara with 2 cocktails. "You should rescue him." "He's not my boy," Amara replied automatically, but accepted the drink. "Please." Ife rolled her eyes. "You think I don't recognize that just got laid glow? You two are back to playing dangerous games." "It's not a game this time." "No. Ife raised an eyebrow. Then what's with the separate arrivals? The pretending not to know each other across a crowded room. The secret hotel meetings. Amara stared at her friend. How did you? Babe, I have a podcast about relationship deception. You think I don't have sources? Ife sipped her drink. Besides, you forget I know both of you better than anyone. Your patterns are distinctive. Before Amara could respond, a commotion erupted near the bar. A man was shouting at Kunle, who stood rigid with confusion. Out here pretending to be going blind for publicity, the man was saying, loud enough to silence nearby conversations. My sister has a pee for real, man. It's not a fucking marketing stunt for your TV show. Amara moved through the crowd without thinking. By the time she reached them, Kunle was trying to explain. I understand your anger, he was saying, hands raised placatingly. But I assure you, my diagnosis is real. Prove it, the man demanded. Take off those fancy glasses. Let everyone see your deteriorating vision in action. The crowd had formed a circle around them, phones recording. Ife was trying to defuse the situation, but the tension had already escalated beyond her control. That's enough, Amara said, stepping between them. You're making a scene over something you know nothing about. The man's eyes widened in recognition. Holy shit. The blind billionaire herself. His laugh was ugly. Come to defend your partner in crime. Or is this just a setup for season 2? Back off, she warned. Now. Or what? You'll pretend not to see me. He turned to the crowd. These two are frauds. They are using real disabilities as plot devices for their sick little fame games. Something snapped inside Amara. All the careful image rehabilitation of the past year, all the controlled narratives and managed perceptions, suddenly none of it mattered against this stranger's cruel dismissal of Kunle's genuine struggle. You want proof, she said, the voice deadly quiet. Fine. She grabbed the man's phone from his hand and held it up. Record this. Then she turned to face the room. My name is Amara Okonkwo. 3 years ago, I faked being blind to test whether someone could love me without being influenced by my wealth or status. I met Kunle Adeyemi, who loved me genuinely, only to discover my deception. He exposed me publicly. The room had gone completely silent. Now, in life's cruelest joke, Kunle is actually losing his vision. Not for publicity. Not for sympathy. It's real, it's degenerative, and it's irreversible. She handed the phone back to its stand owner. So congratulations. You just publicly harassed a man with a disability while accusing him of faking that same disability. I hope the likes are worth it. She took Kunle's arm and led him toward the exit, ignoring the explosion of whispers behind them, the frantic clicking of camera apps, the sensation of a carefully constructed narrative collapsing around them. Outside, in the relative quiet of the hotel corridor, Kunle pulled away from her grasp. What the hell was that? He demanded. I was defending you, she said, surprised by his anger. I don't need your defense, Amara. I need my dignity. He was humiliating you in front of everyone. So you decided to remind the entire room about our history. About my cruel joke of a condition. His voice shook. That wasn't about protecting me. That was about controlling the narrative, your specialty. The accusation stung because it contained a kernel of truth. She had acted instinctively to shape the story before someone else could, to define them on her terms. I'm sorry, she said, the words unfamiliar on her tongue. I didn't think. That's just it, he interrupted. You never do think about the consequences for anyone but yourself. 3 years ago, you didn't consider what your deception would do to me. 7 months ago, I didn't consider what my exposure would do to you. And tonight you didn't consider what your grand gesture would do to our carefully balanced arrangement. What are you saying? I'm saying we are stuck in a loop, he replied, suddenly sounding exhausted. Performing for each other, performing for an audience, always calculating the next move in a game neither of us knows how to stop playing. A heavy silence fell between them. In the distance, the party continued, the bass thumping through the walls like a heartbeat. What if we just stopped? Amara suggested quietly. No more performances. No more games. He laughed without humor. Would we even recognize each other without the masks? Before she could answer, his phone rang, his agent, calling about the scene at the party that was already trending online. Reality intrusion, right on schedule. As he took the call, stepping away to speak privately, Amara felt a profound weariness settle over her. They were both trapped in a prison of their own design, walls built from lies, surveillance, exposure, and counterexposure. Each believing themselves the protagonist in a story that had long ago spiraled beyond their control. The revelation hit her with unexpected clarity: a love without vulnerability was indeed just performance. And they had been performing for so long that the line between act and authenticity had dissolved completely. 3 days later, Kunle's series premiered to critical acclaim and record-breaking viewership. Amara watched it alone in her hotel room, a bottle of wine untouched beside her. He hadn't contacted her since the party incident, and she had respected his silence. The final episode ended differently from the preview she'd seen months earlier. Instead of the reconciliation scene, it concluded with the two characters going their separate ways, each recognizing that some bonds, once broken by manipulation, couldn't be repaired. The credits rolled, and Amara sat in darkness, confronting the possibility that the fictional ending might be the truest one. Her phone chimed with a message. From Kunle: meet me at the coffee shop. Where it all began. An hour later, she stood outside the cafe where she'd spilled hot cocoa on him 3 years ago. Through the window, she could see him sitting at the same table, staring at nothing, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. She entered quietly, sliding into the seat across from him. How bad today? She asked, noting the special glasses, the white cane leaning against the table. 50% peripheral loss, he answered without preamble. Central vision still intact, but clouding. They sat in silence, the ambient cafe noise creating a bubble of privacy around them. I watched the final cut, she said finally. You changed the ending. He nodded. Reality demanded it. Is that why you asked me here? To enact the fictional ending in real life. His smile was sad. Always looking for the plot twist. Force of habit. That's just it, Amara. He leaned forward slightly. Habits can be broken. Narratives can be rewritten. But only if we are willing to step completely outside the story we've been telling. What does that mean? It means I'm leaving Lagos, he said. I've been offered a teaching position at a film school in Berlin. Specializing in authentic representation of disability in cinema. The news shouldn't have hurt. They had no formal relationship, no promises, no future plans. And yet. When? Next week. She nodded, swallowing the unexpected lump in her throat. That's good. A fresh start. For both of us, he agreed. You can't redefine yourself in a city that will always see you through the lens of our scandal. He was right, of course. Lagos would always see them as characters in a sensational story, not as complex humans trying to evolve beyond their worst mistakes. There's something else, he continued, reaching into his bag. He pulled out a thumb drive. The footage we collected. I want you to have it. She stared at it. Why? Because it's the only thing we created together that was completely honest. He pushed it across the table. No agenda, no manipulation. Just a truth. She took it carefully, as if it might burn her. What am I supposed to do with it? Whatever you want. Keep it private. Make it public. Delete it. He shrugged. I'm releasing control of the narrative. The gesture was more intimate than any physical touch they'd shared. For people like them, obsessed with shaping perception, crafting stories, controlling how they were seen, surrendering a narrative was the ultimate vulnerability. Thank you, she whispered. He stood, unfolding his cane. One last thing. Yes. I did love you, he said simply. Through all the deceptions and counter-deceptions, that part was real. Complicated and twisted and probably unhealthy, but real. She wanted to say it back, to offer that same transparency. But the words caught in her throat, another performance, another calculation. Instead, she stood and gently took his face in her hands, exactly as he'd done to her that first day when she'd been pretending to be blind. She memorized his features with her fingertips, allowing herself one moment of complete presence. Goodbye, Colonel, she said, dropping her hands. He nodded once, understanding everything she couldn't say, and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. You know the moral of our story, don't you? What's that? Love without vulnerability is just performance, he said, echoing her earlier thought. But vulnerability without trust is just another kind of blindness. With that, he stepped out into the Lagos sunshine, navigating with his cane, disappearing into the crowd of a city that had witnessed their elaborate dance of deception and desire. Amara remained seated, turning the thumb drive over in her hands. Their collaboration. Their truth. Their final chapter. 6 months later, a small independent film premiered at the Lagos International Film Festival. Titled simply A Scene, it documented the journey of a filmmaker losing his sight while rebuilding trust with the woman who had once feigned blindness. No actors, no script, no manipulated narrative, just raw footage of two people learning to truly see each other through layers of damage they'd inflicted. Amara watched from the back of the theater as the audience responded with tears, laughter, and ultimately, a standing ovation. She had edited the footage herself, adding nothing, removing nothing, presenting their story with the unvarnished honesty that had eluded them for so long. Colonel hadn't attended the premiere. His condition had accelerated, and travel had become difficult. But she'd sent him the final cut, and his response had been simple: the truth, at last. After the screening, a young woman approached her. Was it worth it, she asked. Exposing yourself like that? Amara considered the question carefully. I spent years controlling how people saw me, creating characters, testing boundaries, building walls. And all it got me was isolation dressed up as power. And now I understand that real connection can only happen when you allow yourself to be truly seen, flaws, fears, and all. She smiled slightly. It's terrifying. But it's the only way to break the cycle of performance and deception. Did you ever see him again? The woman asked. The filmmaker. No, Amara admitted. Some damage can't be undone. Some trust can't be rebuilt. That's sad. Is it? Amara looked toward the screen where the final frame still lingered, a split screen of her face and Colonel's, both looking directly into camera, both completely unveiled. I think it's honest. And honesty is what we needed more than another chance to hurt each other. As she left the theater, stepping into the warm Lagos night, Amara felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of performance, of calculation, of constant vigilance, all lifted by the simple act of surrendering control. She had finally learned what had eluded her for so long, that love without vulnerability was indeed just performance, but true vulnerability required the courage to be seen exactly as you are, without filters, without cameras, without the safety net of deception. Some lessons came too late for second chances. But they came exactly when needed for redemption.